Hey everyone out there, how's it going? Welcome to Screen Speak. It's the podcast that's all about movies, life, and so much more. I'm Jordan Anderson, this is my podcast, and as always, I thank you very much for being here, taking the time to listen to this episode, and most importantly, supporting this podcast. Is this your first time here? Well, awesome. Very happy to have you here. I really seriously think that you picked a great episode to stumble across for your first exposure to the Screen Speak world. Have you been here before? This isn't your first time you've heard my voice? Well, even better, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you. That's Y-O-U for those of us that can't spell. Okay. Now, whether it is your first time here or you do happen to be a regular, show some support for Screen Speak by hitting the follow button and the bell so that you stay in the loop on new episodes. And from there, you can get involved on Screen Speak social, primarily, at this point, by way of Instagram, which is at Screen Speak Podcast. That information's all in the description of this episode. And I say primarily right now because while there is also a Facebook community, I did a post recently in which I told everyone that I'm in the process of debating whether or not to simply just have Screen Speak Social live solely on Instagram, or to continue having both Facebook and Instagram be its social, or perhaps another variation even off of that, someplace that Screen Speak is not at. Do you have an opinion on that? Well, if so, I would love to hear it. Send me a DM or direct message or email the podcast at any time and seriously let me know or comment on whatever it is that you're listening to this on. And for that matter, just share your thoughts on social media and podcasts too. I'm always looking for ways to better utilize these platforms or explore new ways to get Screen Speak out there. The world of social media is one that I find to be ever changing, and I would just want to make sure that Screen Speak's place on it makes the most sense and it's doing the most for you all, the fans of the podcast. So definitely let me know your thoughts on that. You got any tips, tricks, recommendations, anything like that? Anything at all, I'll take it. Just let me know. Now, something else I'd like to get your opinion on before I move on with the rest of this introduction is the release schedule of this podcast. It's something I've been hearing a lot lately just from other podcasts or people asking me about mine saying, hey, like, when do you put out your episodes? Like, is it every Friday? Is it every Monday? You do it twice a week? When the hell do you do this, right? I don't know if I have a strict answer for that at this point. I feel like, at least very lately, I've been consistent in putting out at least one episode a week. That's usually the goal, maybe two if I am being generous or I just have a good amount of time at my hands. I don't know. But that said, I'd be really curious to see when you all prefer to listen to Screen Speak. I'm sure I can certainly go into my analytics of the episodes that I do have out and take a look at when people listen the most, and that will probably yield some positive answers, or at least some answers. But I'd rather just ask you guys, rather ask you ladies, guys, anybody that is listening, doesn't really matter. I want to know what you think, because I want to put this stuff out when it makes the most sense for you, so let me know. Sometimes I don't even know if certain podcasts have release dates, for that matter. Or I shouldn't say release dates, but release schedules. I feel like I just follow a number of them that just put them out whenever is convenient for them. And you just look at your phone, and when you see the bell or you're going through your feed and you see there's new content, you listen to it. It's like, how often are you actually waiting for that Monday morning or that Wednesday evening to drop by in order to check out the person's content? I don't know. Maybe there is something on this. Point is, I don't know. I need to know that from you, so enough said. Now, moving on to what's actually in this episode. I got two guests with me, Lucas Halverson and Dillon Jacobson. So, Lucas is a guy I've never met before, never met him at all, and he's never been on this podcast before. I first saw him as an actor in a short that was directed by Dillon, and since then we got connected with each other by way of Instagram, messaging each other, and just trying to figure out when we could do a podcast together. And originally the plan was to just have Lucas be on with me, but then Dillon was with him, and I was like, hey, you guys both can be on the podcast. The more the merrier. I'm all good with it. So that's how that happened. A little bit about Lucas. He's actually a county supervisor for a small town here in Iowa by day, and by night he works at pursuing his dreams of acting and in general just getting involved with the world of movies. Now, Dillon, on the other hand, has been here before, previously talking about his short film Large, and that's the film that featured Lucas as the lead actor, so that's kind of how we all got connected. And Dillon himself, he's clearly has a lot of talents behind the camera. I think he's up and coming, and he has a unique intellectual perspective when he talks about movies, just the way he speaks to them. And I thankfully think that it's in a way that, for me personally, is not condescending or talking down to others. Because that's a risk that you run into when you meet a number of intellectuals or creatives, specifically in the world of filmmaking, is sometimes they can be kind of highbrow and pretentious and snobby, and it basically turns off your average person. At least that's what I find. And thankfully, Dillon, for all his big brains, he is not like that. He's pretty down to earth and just is a pretty knowledgeable person when it comes to movies, and I'm excited to see what he continues to put out in the world of film. So together, the three of us talk about various aspects of movies that resonate with us the most. We talk about the power of telling a personal story, discuss when it's best to watch movies alone versus when you watch one with an audience, live action remakes, particularly for some reason on The Lion King. So when you take those live action remakes and you're deriving them from animated content, what does that really do? Is one better than the other? Should they coexist? What's going on with that? We talk about ticket prices today, when it's too expensive, when it's too cheap, is there any meaning behind that, and a whole lot more. And finally, towards the end of the episode, I take a chance and I do something new. I play movie games. I've never done this before. I don't know why I haven't done it. I know a lot of different podcasts out there, they do these little games or these little segments, and I came up with a few for this episode, and I felt it appropriate to roll them out on this one. So, love to see what you all think. What I do is I'm essentially pitting classic movies against each other. Won't say how, because you'll have to get to that point in the episode to figure that out. But it's in a creative way, and I think I designed it to stir up our overall knowledge of movies and to sort of challenge our perspectives on them to basically answer things that are damn near impossible to answer. So really had a lot of fun with that. Definitely think it's something I'm going to be revisiting down the road for ScreenSpeak. So all that being said, I would love to hear your thoughts on the questions that are posed during those games. Love to hear your thoughts on the overall content of this episode and those earlier questions I asked at the beginning of this introduction. So, reach out to ScreenSpeak on Instagram. You can email or just leave a comment through your preferred podcast platform. I promise you all, I'm the one that's reading them, the sole person that's reading them. This isn't that big of a thing just yet where I have assistants doing all my work for me. Knock on wood. Perhaps that'll happen. Who knows? But I don't even know if I want an assistant doing this stuff. I kind of like the control. I don't know. Why would I turn away an assistant? I don't know. I actually think it would be pretty cool to have one. Write that down. You know what movie that's from? Think about that. Okay. All that being said, again, appreciation goes out to each and every one of you for listening. Thanks so much. Enjoy the latest episode of ScreenSpeak. Take care. Do you want to know how many there actually is?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I'm that guy. So I have an app, plug for these guys, My Movies Pro. Costs about $5, so it's not free, sorry to say. But it is a catalog app, so you can quite literally have all your movies on the go with you. Just basically, I mean, not like digital copies, but you can basically just be like, hey, like if someone's like, do you own this? I can be like, well, let me check.
Actually, yeah.
And I can go ahead and do that. But it also counts it for you. So according to this, I have 478, and I don't know if that's including things that are like bundles. Sure. You know what I mean? Like the 4-packs and like stuff like that. Yep. So, yeah. So anybody that heard that, please don't come and steal my movies, because I just basically told you how many I have, and you could probably guesstimate the value and everything like that. So, but yeah. So let's go ahead and get this started officially, sir. First off, welcome to my home.
Thank you.
Not every day I have people come and record in the home office, but I gotta admit I did a little bit of a search on you, if you will. I didn't like go like criminal court website or anything like that, but I'm like, okay, he's got like a decent photo in his profile picture. He knows Dillon. Dillon wasn't a freak. So, the things were adding up that this would be okay.
I appreciate that you don't think I'm a freak. Well,
No.
I mean, he doesn't know you that well yet, so.
But I mean, you guys, because you guys have to think about it. It's a risk when you invite someone over to your home, especially like if like they don't know you and stuff. Like you don't know,
Right.
and like I don't do it all the time, but if I have reason enough to believe that I'm like, a person's all right. I mean, like, what are they gonna do?
Right.
What are they gonna do?
Plus, clearly I'm a very intimidating person, so.
I was pretty scared. Like, I thought you were here selling crack
Right.
to our fellow tenants, but you weren't really doing that.
This isn't that part of the town, I don't think. Very nice looking.
So your name is Lucas.
It is, yep.
What's your last name?
Halverson. Halverson is my given last name.
What's your middle name?
Dean.
Okay, where'd that come from?
As far as I know, it'd be my great-grandfather on my mother's side. His name was Dean. But my dad, his middle name is also Dean, so I'm not sure which one, whether they're just copying my dad's middle name or they wanted to throw my grandfather into it. Maybe it was a mix of both, but that's the origin of that, I would assume.
Nice. I mean, that's way more than I expected you to know.
Yeah.
Like, some people are just like, I don't know, man. Like, they just picked it out.
Right.
How did you two get hooked up?
Well, we were in high school together. He was a grade below me, correct, Dillon?
I think 2 grades.
2 grades below me. So, being in the small town that we were in, it's pretty, you know pretty much everybody in town. So we've known of each other for pretty much our entire lives. But, things like drama, different activities through high school, you got closer, started hanging out with mutual friends,
Sure.
realizing we had certain things in common. And
What do you guys have in common?
probably a big one being the movie space, making movies, watching movies, just a general love for film and the arts in general, being on stage in drama production, stuff like that. I mean, it's always been a core of sort of who we are and what makes us up. So, and I think that's the case for a lot of the friends we hang out with. It's that sort of general artsy space, and it's one of those deals where, sometimes you go through high school and you have certain friends because you either want to hang out with this certain crowd of people, or you want to reach a certain echelon in the sort of high school popularity chain. But having friends like Dillon and some of the other guys we hang out with, where it's just, it's not like I'm friends with Dillon to try and get something out of him, right? It's just we bonded and we're through just real life stuff, which is what makes the best sort of friends you can have in this world. So
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I don't think I've ever been in the mindset, if I try to make a friend with anybody, to be like, what can they do for me?
Right.
It's not usually the first thing that comes across my mind. It's just usually, can I obviously talk with them. I think that's just a big one. Just how conversational are they, and do they really have an interest in me? Do I have an interest in them? Obviously, you look for similar interests and things like that too. But I also just think you look for people that are reliable too, because that's sometimes a thing I've had bad experience with in the past, is just kind of flakes and that whole thing. It can be disappointing.
Right.
But
well, and I've always held, when I was younger, there was a very influential person in my life who made a statement that you should surround yourself with people who are more successful than you or better than you, and use that as a guiding light of sorts as you grow as a person. And I feel like, in a certain way, we've been able to bounce off each other and help each other, whether it's situations in the film space or just on a personal level. We've been able to sort of push each other to become better than who we were originally. So surrounding yourself with people like that, I think is important in life.
And how old are you?
22 still, I believe. 22, yeah. 23 here in July, so.
Well, not to pull the I'm older card, but I will just for a moment, because I usually hate it when people are like, back in my day, and they do that whole thing. But For you to realize that at this age is like, I'm not kidding. I'm going to sound like the older brother, but it is a very good thing that you know that. Because I know when I was that age, I didn't really think about friends kind of that way. I probably didn't think that much about it at all. I just kind of feel like I sort of lucked into, being around people, or in some cases unluck, because you didn't really like think about it too hard.
Right.
And then before you know it, you're in one of those situations where it's like, these kind of people aren't really who I really want to be around, and I need to do other things. And then, it's almost like breaking up, except not with a woman, but with a dude. So.
Yeah. You don't want to be surrounded by people that are going to drag you down, and the sooner you realize that and point out who those people are, the better off you're going to be. And luckily, I was able to point out who those people were. I felt early in my life, so
it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
So I gotta go into back on the research I did on you a little bit, because I try to actually do prep. When I talked to Dillon, it was just kind of, hey, you're at the film fest,
right,
and you want to be on the podcast, and it was just like, sure, let's go over to this dimly lit corner in a vacant room and do a podcast. But for yourself, so where are you from, Luke?
Conrad, Iowa, is where I grew up. I originally I was in Gladbrook, which is just about 15, 20 minutes away, for the first few years of my life. Then parents got divorced, ended up moving to Conrad, started school there, pretty much been there since then. And that's where I currently live, bought a house a couple years ago. So the Conrad Gladbrook area, I sort of consider them sort of 50-50, for a number of years going back and forth, because Dad still lived in Gladbrook. But Conrad is... We went to school where I live now, so I consider that sort of my home, I guess.
Sure. And, well, to be clear, too, like, where I kind of first got exposed to you was, in a way, vicariously through Dillon, because I saw you in his short, Large, which I'm glad you're able to muster the courage to get that pizza order correct.
Absolutely.
But I'm curious, had that been the first thing that you had acted in, or like done as far as creatively, like with like a video and the whole thing?
We'd done a number of sort of short films prior to that. We'd done, I think, 3 for the 48-hour film festival, and then in high school, just a number of little short, project deals here and there. I mean, all throughout high school, we were doing just a number of sort of little things like that. Any chance we could, we would, whether it was a school project, you'd do a little snippet for or something. So, no, it wasn't the first time, but it was sort of it was a unique experience just in what the film itself was. There's only one person on screen besides Dillon in the motivational video. So you're not acting off of anybody. You don't have somebody to share dialogue with, in a sense. So it was probably the most unique acting experience that I've had with Dillon.
Did it help that you guys had the history that you guys had for that?
I think so. We were able to play off each other really well, and we've got the relationship now where it's not. Dillon obviously knows loads more than I do as far as the technical side of film, but he's not somebody who's not willing to listen to ideas. And that's been a huge part why I think our film group as a whole works so well together. And you're forced to when you do something like the 48-hour film festival. I mean, you have such little time and you have to crunch out so much creative things that you have to be willing to listen and digest everything anybody is saying in order to come to a final conclusion. So any ideas I have, Dillon's always willing to listen, and we have a close enough relationship now where he's not afraid to tell me when an idea doesn't work or why it doesn't work, or hey, it just doesn't make sense. So he's good at giving constructive criticism like that, definitely.
Yeah, and I think I'll kind of bounce off of that. So with Large specifically, and being able to, I guess, bounce off of basically the actors that you have to bounce off of. You have one person that's on the phone, and then you have one person that's on a TV screen.
Right.
And you're just trying to like act as naturally as you can, and also you have to pantomime a little bit because you're not speaking or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And being able to kind of just with knowing each other for so long, I was able to just like communicate my vision, because I was basically just doing a bunch of the stuff behind the scenes, as I said, that's more of my scope. Is basically I was able to easily or more easily communicate what not what I wanted him to do, because that's an actor's job. That's not a director's job. Well, it kind of is, but it's more on a conceptual side. Basically, I give him the situation and I tell him what the character, who is also aptly named Lucas, is who he kind of is, and he's just able to just kind of run with it. And as far as our group is, I'm getting probably the most formal training out of any of our people, besides I think one person that has probably the brunt of our equipment, at least on the camera side. I'm getting the most formal training on higher education. So with that, I'm able to, I guess, get more theoretical parts of film kind of ingrained into what we do, as well as I kind of know what is technically possible, especially on the on our scale of expertise. That being said, I find myself trying to purposefully limit myself to make things as easy as possible, and I find that also kind of stunts my creative process. So having people that probably don't necessarily know as much about like what is possible with a camera, or like hiding a microphone somewhere, having somebody that doesn't exactly know that and isn't afraid to this is the more important part, isn't afraid to reach out a little bit more and try and be a bit more, I guess, adventurous is really, really it's I think it's necessary. So
yeah, it's interesting with the just the overall field of collaborations, specifically in film, because it's a very obviously creative field, whether it's the technical side of it, which I think it's important that you mention actually that there can be creativity and ingenuity with the actual technical side, because I think a lot of people just think of like, like the art direction, or they think of the acting and stuff, but it's like, no, like there's creative choices that are done with the technology to make the overall scene work and whatnot. But what I think is interesting, what you guys were kind of just hitting on right now, is that creatives, I mean, as people, like they're very, very outspoken a lot of time, have big opinions, big ideas, and those can clash sometimes, often, maybe more times than not. And I do think it is really important and probably not easy to find that balance where it's like, Dillon here has a technical side of things, whereas Lucas, he might see things a different way, but you guys respect each other enough that you're not going to be like, well, I don't want to piss him off, or get like his idea taken the wrong way or something. You're just open with it, because ultimately I think what most creatives want that understand this is they want the best thing for the audience. They basically, the story wins. You guys just want to get to the best place and, make it through it in one piece. So Lucas, did I see that you are a county supervisor?
Yep. That's correct. Ran for the office in the 2020 election.
So does that mean like you're political, or I guess I don't really know a ton about local politics, not to sound stupid.
It's it's a political office. It's a 4-year term, and essentially what it is we set the budget for the county. We oversee the different department heads, so like your assessor, your treasurer, public health, veterans affairs, all that stuff. All the county departments are underneath. We're sort of just the overseer of the budget for the different departments. There's little things here and there. We set the bonds for the county and whatnot. But yeah, it's a very fulfilling position, especially in a smaller community.
How'd you get into that?
I was always very, throughout high school, I was always a very sort of outspoken, I don't want to say political guy. I hate the word politician and political, just because it's so, it's just, it's taken such a nasty sort of turn, in recent years. But just having conversations with people, just talking about issues and stuff was always a passion of mine, especially throughout high school. And especially in the community, I always had this drive to offer as much of myself as I possibly could to help further my community and the people within it. And this position, there was a calling from people within the community. I thought to myself that I'd be able to help out in some sort of way, and ran. It was very, the 2020, you had COVID going on. I was deployed for the entire campaign, so I was running essentially a virtual campaign from overseas. Mm-hmm. But because of the pandemic, it sort of helped in our favor because everybody was used to doing everything online, and virtually. So ended up winning, taking office in January of 21, and held it ever since. It's sort of, we have meetings every Monday morning, and then there's spatterings of different meetings throughout the week.
That's a fun word, spattering.
Yeah. I don't know if it's an act. It just came to mind. So
it sounded legit.
It's a very fulfilling job.
Are you fact checking this?
Yeah, I'm fact checking this. I have to.
I appreciate that because a lot of the time the listener might be tempted to do it themselves, but we got you covered here.
Right,
we're taking care of this.
Spattering.
Yep.
Cover with drops or spots of something.
Kinda.
Or fall.
It was a word.
Or fall so as to be scattered over an area.
There you go. Scattered over an area. Meeting scattered over the week.
Where did you pull that out of your vocabulary? Did it just...
I've heard it different places, and I thought it fit in the situation. I think to myself often, where I come up with certain words that I say, it just happens in the moment, I guess.
So let me ask, county supervisor, you have military experience, which thank you for your service. I don't just be one of those thank you for your service. I do actually mean it. Pro-military. So
I noticed you have a couple Zero Dark 30 on the shelves, 13 hours. You have some solid.
Yeah, 13 hours is there. I know Saving Private Ryan's there.
Classic.
I think Lone Survivor's on there somewhere.
Good movie.
But got a fair amount of stuff. Black Hawk Down. Random ones there here and there. But yeah. But I got to ask, so you and Dillon kind of, you're artistically working together on projects, you're going to be doing acting. Is this something you're still going to be pursuing alongside with the political, or sorry, not the political work, but the supervisor work that you're doing?
So I'm not the kind of guy who, I don't want to get into politics for the sake of getting into politics, right? As like a career or a job or anything. And just ever since taking up this position, just hanging out more in that space, at the state level or even talking to federal politics, it's just such a tough, draining world to get into, playing the political game.
Right.
And, you have people that get into politics who are honestly in it to do the right thing. But then you have a lot of them that are just in it to fulfill an ego and just to go as far as they. So I've never got into a saying, after this point, I want to move up to this level and then move up to this level.
Right.
It's never been the goal. And so I my reelection is coming up in 2024. Mm-hmm. If there's enough people who want me to run for re-election, I'm more than happy to do it. If not, I felt like, I've accomplished a lot of what I've wanted to in my first term, and I'm happy to step away. I'm going to go wherever I'm needed, and if I'm no longer needed in the space, I'm more than happy to accept that.
And you're going to continue acting and doing that sort of thing?
Yeah, and that, that's sort of... Everybody has their hobby, right?
Sure.
And this, I feel, is one of the most prominent. It's one of those things where you spend so much time thinking about it, or you just constantly, every single day, there's different ideas going through your head, or different goals that you want to reach, and for something for so long to take up that much space in your mind. It has to be something that you stick with, and as long as I'm, even if it's not in the acting space, right? Because just being an actor is something I used to think, I wanted to do, but delving more into the creative side of writing or directing or, things like that. I've gotten to a point now where I'm more willing to step aside out of the screen, sort of like Dillon. I mean, he used to spend a lot more time on screen in different projects, but now he focuses a lot more on the directing side or writing side. And I feel like it's, there's times you can get the message across better if there's somebody else taking up the football that's the story and running it. And you're on the sidelines coaching, it's that sort of mindset that and Dillon's been somebody who's helped me sort of realize that and come to that conclusion.
I think a lot of these things, depending on the path that you kind of walk down, creatively speaking, it really is not easy to me figuring out that right exact lane. And I don't think there really is truly a straight lane, especially for this type of field. But it certainly does help if you have people in your corner that are seeing that you have potential in something and they're, they want to further you and make you kind of feel, help you find basically what you gravitate towards. To me, from what I'm hearing, you sound like you're in that process very much, in the thick of it. But you seem pretty open to kind of what happens and you're not trying to overthink it.
Yeah.
Which I think is good. I mean, planning's healthy for sure. And you obviously doing the work you do, I would imagine you have to do that. But yeah, I think it is important to anybody that's listening out there to just kind of allow yourself to be open to possibility and also not shy away from it too.
Right. And it goes back to something you mentioned earlier. We as filmmakers, you want to do what's right for the film and for the audience, and there's a certain amount of, I don't want to say selfishness, but personal output that you have in your, because so many great films have come from a very personal spot, right? And this is a conversation Dillon and I had a few weeks ago where I'm in the middle of writing some sort of a screenplay. I have a story idea in my head and I'm trying to flesh it out and everything, and it sort of comes from a very personal spot. And during the initial stages of this, it was, I did it with the thought of, I want to write this story so I can relive a moment of my life in a different way, how I would have wanted it to go in my head, but it didn't pan out that way in the real life. So this story is going to be a catalyst for me to relive that experience, essentially. And I was looking at it through the vein of being on screen, actually physically going through this story in a different light. But it can cloud your vision, I feel like, if you're solely focused on that level. And Dillon, and I forget, remind me how he phrased it, but essentially it was, would you rather
All right. Basically, what I said is, especially since this is more of obviously reliving is a bit more of a retrospective look on one's own life. Do you want to have the things that happen in the film happen to you, or do you want to see it happen before your own eyes?
Yeah, and that's where writing a story and having a different actor portray that experience is, and I don't know, because I've never had it really happen. I don't know what would be more cathartic, I guess, is watching somebody do it before your own eyes or actually reliving it yourself. And so, I mean, that's, and again, just another one of the things that in our process of being friends and our group as a whole, it helped us sort of grow and realize and move on from, I guess.
It's kind of an interesting thing I think you pointed out is, and I hadn't really thought of this in this specific way before, but like movies where someone is taking some very personal slice of their life. Now, one that I'm just weirdly enough going to call up because I just quite literally watched it last night was Clerks 3, Kevin Smith's newest movie. Now, I'm not going to give like a whole, full review of that movie and everything like that, but there is definitely a very meta quality of it, and he's certainly trying to relive things from his past and kind of put it through a different lens and things like that. But like you said, if you focus too much on the solely you kind of part of it, then you don't want to lose your audience too much and do something just for you, because then nobody's going to basically pay the price of admission and do this whole thing. But at the same time as well, being truthful to your art and being truthful to your life and your story, what an opportunity it is to be able to get enough people to collaborate to put something together that is so personal to you. And then you, maybe on the selfish part, are the person that gets to sit back and watch it as if you're quite literally outside of your own head.
Exactly.
You get like a 360-degree view of it. And then it's almost like you're paying for like the most expensive form of therapy, because
exactly.
Because it's like then you're also getting to see these things so vividly play out in front of you that you also are watching it happen from other angles.
Right.
So it's like, how does that not only affect you, but it's like, I feel like if you're transparent enough about it and true, the audience will pick up on this.
Absolutely.
It's a big thing. Both of you guys, got a question for you. So title of this podcast is Screen Speak. I'm trying to actually be good about asking this question to people more. How do movies speak to the both of you?
I think personally, movies have always been a sort of escape, right? I mean, you get to experience somebody else's story, and in part, what a good movie does is it almost brings you to a point where you put yourself in that story, and for 2.5 hours or however long that movie might be, you're almost living a different life, right? And what's been so great about movies, and what I think so many people, why they've been such a solid form of entertainment for such a long time, is it really is an escape for people. Regardless of what crap is happening in your real life, for that period of time, you're able to sit down and immerse yourself in a different world and just completely forget about anything else that's happening. And, that's been a huge thing for me. Is it's just relaxing. It's an escape. And there's been so many, there's so many different lives that you want to live, right? And that's, I'm the same way. There's so many different things I want to do in life that are completely unconnected. And, watching, whether it's, watching an action movie or a rom-com or, a drama, each one is a different path and a different way to experience, what that other life might be.
What about you, sir?
I think I kind of touched on this last time I was here, so I'll if my memory serves me correctly, I think it's I'll kind of dance around it as well and kind of flesh it out. So I think I initially said that it was basically a way to look at the world in different ways and be able to take in the viewpoints from people and areas that you might not see every day. Like I don't know, and some of them might not even be even possible, like superhero movies. Like they're, as far as we know, unless the government is hiding something from us, there aren't any real life superheroes.
The government never does that. They always tell us everything.
Yeah, the government would never do that. And anyway, so I think as just beyond that, I think watching movies in a way makes you a better person. Just being able to, I guess, it's a bunch of people that are coming together to bring a vision to life, and being able to take this vision in a very entertaining and digestible way is a very a very good way to, I guess, intake other views and be able to even personalize it even more. So I think that's I guess on the more enjoyment aspect. Obviously, of course, being able to watch movies and be able to appreciate the technical aesthetics or some of the more theoretical aesthetics has kind of helped me foster my own creative process as well, and be able to realize things about myself as a filmmaker.
The answer is different for everybody, and I also think it's ever changing. That's one of the reasons I love asking the question, is because it's just, there's really no two ways to kind of say it.
Right.
It's really different for everybody. I've given different versions of the answer myself because, if I pose the question back to me, I think just on a knee-jerk reaction answer kind of thing, I really gravitate towards movies because of two things. One, kind of to Dillon's point, it makes you a more well-rounded person, I think, because you're getting so many different pieces of information and art kind of coalesce together in a way that other mediums don't do. And you can really take away a lot of it, but then also the emotional level of it. Like for myself, certain times I just want to watch something, like to Luke's point, to just forget, just to like kind of, de-stress and watch maybe like a comfort movie I've seen like a million times. Or I'm, going to be like, I just want to cry my eyes out tonight and watch something that's going to feel like a gut punch, but it might be a necessary one. And just the fact that I can go through those different emotions with the right film and then just walk away with so much different knowledge and scope on, this crazy thing that we call life. That to me is kind of what it's all about. And then just being able to have conversations like this, I think is huge. Of course, it brings together a lot of people too. Another question I had for you guys just on this subject of movies and speaking to us and whatnot, personal preference, and I don't think I've asked this before, are there certain movies that you really would only rather watch just like by yourself as opposed to like with a bunch of people? Because I feel like some movies are so personal for people that like I don't want to watch them always with like somebody else and talk about, like, it's so personal to like just me. I didn't know if you guys had a movie like that.
I think there's, I certainly have, you could call them like guilty pleasure movies, right?
Right.
It's like movies that for whatever reason you yourself connect with, but probably nobody else you hang out with is going to at all be interested in this story. And that's one of the great things about the art form is it can speak to so many different people. Like, there's certainly, whether it's like a random movie from my childhood that I just want to capture a little bit of that nostalgia, or I'm thinking about something I want to go back, pop, like I have a number of DVDs of like, movies from my childhood that I love every once in a while looking back on, and I'm not going to invite anybody over to watch some frickin', like cartoon that I watched when I was 5 years old, but it's I'm sure everybody has those certain movies that they feel the same way about, and it's not something to be like, I can be embarrassed about them or anything, but it's just not, it's a very, it's a moment to look in on yourself and think back to your past and relive a bit of, that's what nostalgia is. It's a great thing about nostalgia is like,
how long does it take for something to officially become nostalgia?
That's a good question.
Like 2 years, and then now it's nostalgic.
It seems like, but it's such a weird. I've always been fascinated with nostalgia in itself. Just as a feeling. And obviously right now the movie scene as a whole is in a huge nostalgia kick. The past, 5 or 6 years, you're remaking every past, movie and making sequels, stuff like that. So, it's definitely, there's a market for it. That's for sure.